Car Cost Canada provides the dealer cost, a list of rebates, plus discounted interest rates. The link is in the description below.
One of the best things about the 2019 Volkswagen e-Golf is that it more or less looks like and more or less drives like the standard Volkswagen Golf, and that's a really good thing because the standard Volkswagen Golf is one of the best little cars on the road today. Now the big difference here, obviously, this thing's not guzzling dinosaur juice. It's a fully electric vehicle. Now, no big changes model year 2019 over model year 2018, so why the heck am I reviewing this car? Well, I have to admit to you, it's mostly for selfish reasons. I'm actually interested in maybe down the road buying myself an EV. It seems to work with my lifestyle here, but I have one fundamental problem, and that is the building I live in doesn't have any charging infrastructure. Doesn't matter how much I badger them, they will not install it. So if I were to get an EV, I'd have to survive on the local public infrastructure that's popping up increasingly here downtown. So is it possible? Well, over the past week, I found out that the answer to that question is a little bit yes and a little bit no. So the question this week is, can you survive with an EV if you don't have anywhere to plug it into at the end of the night? And the answer to that is going to come down to a combination of factors. And I think the first is, what's your lifestyle? How do you use your vehicle? The second is range. How far can you go on a single charge? And finally, the third is, totally out of your control, what's the charging infrastructure like in your city? Because you're going to be relying on that every couple of days or once a week if you plan on going anywhere. But first, let's get to brass tacks and talk about what's powering this e-Golf. We have a 35.8 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery with the equivalent of 134 horsepower and 214 pounds-feet of torque. Now that's less power but more torque than your standard Golf, but keep in mind we're pushing more weight. This is about 400 pounds more than your standard Golf, bringing the total weight to just under 1,600 kilograms. Now that's heavy by Golf standards, but not particularly heavy in the realm of automobiles. Now performance is not quite as spry as your standard Golf. With that power and with that weight, we can get to 100 in just over 8 seconds. Competitive with the segment, although left in the dust by the likes of the new Kona EV. Now, one of the hallmarks, I think, of the Golf is that it feels tight, it feels nimble, and it feels sharp in a way that a lot of other brands can't compete with. And that absolutely translates into the e-Golf, where it feels secure and sure-footed on its feet. It's got an independent rear suspension, which keeps it planted around corners, gives it much more of a sort of refined, sophisticated feel. I'm driving in some sort of late winter rutted roads right now in the city of Toronto, and it does a pretty good job of soaking these bumps up. Now, typically when I get a vehicle to review, one of the first things I do is get the heck out of the city of Toronto, because we're dealing with things like streetcars and potholes and cabs pulling illegal U-turns and a whole range of traffic. And it's not a whole lot of fun, but I wanted to stay down here with this e-Golf because, as I found out this week, this is right at home in this environment. It is a small car, it's nimble, and with that EV power that comes on smoothly and suddenly when you put your foot into it, it's just perfect for this type of environment. When it comes to the steering feel itself, you do not feel anything. You don't feel any vibrations. You don't get a sense of the road underneath the wheels. However, it's a very sharp rack, and it feels direct in the sense that it responds very quickly to your steering input. It's quite difficult to tell the difference between a standard gasoline-powered Golf and an e-Golf. You really kind of need to know what you're looking for. But the dead giveaway to me is the fact that you'll see those gross 16-inch aero wheels on the outside. The e-Golf comes standard with LED lights on all four corners. You also get an auto high beam assist, a nice feature to have. And then you get a blue trim around the front and a little bit of blue trim on the inside, whether it's contrast stitching on the leather wrapped steering wheel or a little bit of blue ambient lighting. And then of course you've got some badging here and there. It says e-Golf in the center console just ahead of the gear lever. And there's a couple of e-Golf badges around. And of course, at least if you're in Ontario, you get the green license plate so you can tell everybody this is an electric car. But other than that, the standard e-Golf comes with an 8-inch infotainment screen that is pretty big and pretty bright, and it does have, in Volkswagen style, that sensor. So as you get your hands closer to the infotainment screen, it pops up additional menus, and I like that because it just keeps it nice and clean when it's not in use. Now, if you upgrade into the Tech and Driver's Assistance Pack, which we'll talk about in a sec, that goes from 8-inch to 9.3 inches, which we have in this car, and there's a big wow factor here. Now, a couple of complaints about this. The native navigation system is a bit quirky in terms of how it categorizes addresses. For example, this week I went to go to a street that's referred to as West Beaver Creek, just north of Toronto, and I couldn't find it in here under West Beaver Creek. They had it stored as W Beaver Creek. So a couple of weird quirks like that to contend with. And also, it's not the most sensitive. It's not the fastest, especially in cold weather. I've been using these gloves, which are supposed to be for smartphone uses and tablets and things like that. And I'm going to say 8 times out of 10 I'm fine, but occasionally I end up having to double or triple press something just to get it to work. And of course, that's not helped with this cold weather we've had. So this is not a standard e-Golf that I have. There's a $4,750 Tech and Driver's Assistance package, as I just mentioned a moment ago. What does that give you? Well, I already said the larger 9.3-inch screen, which has a real wow factor. By the way, that's all touch screen. You do get smudges and dust on here. There's no scroll wheel. It also gives you a big digital dashboard, which is, of course, a simplified reskinned version of Audi's virtual cockpit. You don't get as much customization as you do with the Audi products or some of the new Mercedes dashboards, but nonetheless, it adds a real wow factor to a car that's this size in this segment. You get people sitting in here looking over, thinking this car is $100,000, but of course, it's nowhere near that. So overall, those packages are going to give you some bling, some tech, but they're also going to give you safety features and driver's assistance stuff like auto parallel parking, radar guided cruise control, lane departure assist, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about charging for a sec. Every e-Golf is going to come off the showroom floor with one of these bad boys. It's a charging unit, but this will plug into your standard household outlet. Now, the bad thing about this is that it's going to take 12 to 14 hours, and if you read some internet forums like I have this week, upwards of 20 hours in some cases to get a full charge. However, for just over $1,000, Volkswagen will love to sell you a Phase 2 240-volt home charging system, which is a fast charger. So that'll get you from 0 to full in 4 to 6 hours. If you're going to use this thing every day, spend the extra $1,000, put that in your garage, your parking space, and then you never have to worry about range the next morning. When it comes to space, this is a surprising package. Looks can be deceiving because once you get in here, there's more than enough space for 4 adults. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall, and as you can see, lots of room for my legs. I can stretch out, and with the adjustable telescoping steering wheel, there's no problem for me to get comfortable. These seats, I'm going to rate them as sort of B or average. I wish there was a little more of lumbar adjustability. There is a manual adjustment, but it's not quite where I would like it. But again, your mileage may vary with that one. When you hop into the back, a surprising amount of room. I'll throw a clip up now and you'll be able to see me getting in behind my driver's seat. So again, I'm rather long-legged and I've got just enough clearance to be comfortable. Certainly if you're of a more average height or you've got kids back there, no problem. Now, there is a sort of quasi-transmission tunnel. That's actually where they store some battery and electronic componentry back there. So there's a hump in the center seat, which means you don't have a lot of comfort for whoever is riding in the center. But everything else is surprisingly roomy for a car of this size. Cargo capacity is solid. There's more space back there than you'll find in the new Kona EV, and that goes to show you looks can be deceiving. Everybody always assumes that SUV-shaped vehicles are automatically going to be more practical, but not the case with the Golf. You lift the tailgate, there's tons of room. I had a bunch of camera gear back here. I went grocery shopping this week. More than enough practicality for any small car. So overall, this is a really nice little package. There's a lot of standard equipment here, including that 8-inch infotainment, the heated seats, the rain sensing washers, so on and so forth. Now, I wish I had a heated steering wheel. I wish I could get a sunroof, but alas, they're not available in the Canadian marketplace. Mixed materials, quality, design, I like it. It's austere, it's conservative. Somebody looking for a little more contemporary pizzazz might want to look elsewhere, but this is all Volkswagen. Straight lines, simple, easy to use, good mix of materials. Now, there are some hard, nasty plastics on the lower door panel, but it's to be expected in a car of this price in this segment. But elsewhere, nice leather-like materials. The stitching is nice. There's no rattles or creaks in here. It's just a really nice place to be. So let's get back to those three factors that I mentioned off the top. So there was the lifestyle, there was the range of the vehicle, and then there was access to charging infrastructure. And number one, lifestyle. Well, this absolutely works for me. We're a two-car family. I've got a traditional vehicle that can do all the heavy lifting, and this could potentially be a second vehicle getting me to and from my work, which really isn't that far away. Number two, range. Well, that's the Achilles heel of this e-Golf. 201 kilometers in ideal conditions, which has really been left in the dust by the likes of Nissan and Chevy and Hyundai Kona with 415 kilometers of range now. So can I survive with only 200? Well, it wouldn't make me as anxious if I knew I could plug in at night, but the fact that I'm relying on the public charging infrastructure makes me a little bit anxious about only having 200, especially since as soon as you start using AC or heated seats or all of your regular auxiliary items that you take for granted, that range is actually nowhere near 201 kilometers. So, third and final point, public charging infrastructure. Well, in the city of Toronto, you've got an increasing number of public stations you can access. It's probably the best place to live if you're an EV owner in the entire country. But here's the problem. There is no sort of unified central infrastructure that you can plug into. There's different companies that own different styles of machines. I've got 4 apps on my phone that all are kind of doing the same thing but help you navigate the network as it is today. And it's just not that easy. I figured I'd get in and I'd go. Of course, that's what the Volkswagen website says. That's what all these EV manufacturers are trying to sell you on, that the transition from gas to battery-powered vehicles will be a breeze, but I'm here to tell you it takes a little bit of getting used to. So I actually had to pay $12 to get into a parking lot and then $33 to fill this thing up to absolutely full from about, I want to say maybe 20% capacity. So when you consider the price to fill in over almost $45, that whole process from beginning to end, considering I'm going to go well under 200K on this charge, then you start to realize that's actually more expensive than a gasoline-powered car. This e-Golf starts at just over $37,000 in the Canadian marketplace. The vehicle you see here has been equipped with a $4,700 technology and driver's assistance package. This brings the total up to just over $41,000 here in Canada, and that's expensive, especially considering a standard Golf can be had in the low $20,000 range, but this is definitely keeping in step with the rest of the EV industry. I mean, take a look at the Hyundai Kona EV. That starts at $45,000. Now, the big difference, obviously, is that Kona EV will go 415 kilometers on a single charge. This is only 200 in ideal conditions. What things do I like about this car? Well, as I've said a few times, it's fundamentally a Golf. It's a great little car. It's practical. It's got as much space in the back as you're going to find in many subcompact or compact SUVs. It's nimble, it's agile, it's fleet of foot, and it's got a real nice quality feeling on the inside, a sense of solidity that's sometimes missing from others in the segment. Things I don't like, well, the range. They've really been left in the dust when it comes to range. I mean, you've got well over 300 from a couple of competitors, and it really makes this seem a little bit sort of last generation. Also, the styling. I like the styling, but I know a lot of people comment on this being boring, especially with these 16-inch kind of aero EV wheels. But that, you know, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. But overall, a compelling package. If Volkswagen could do something about the range, and I imagine they will in the upcoming years, and I think this would be a true winner. For Motormouth, my name's Mike Gurr. Thanks for watching.
Car Cost Canada provides the dealer cost, a list of rebates, plus discounted interest rates. The link is in the description below.